Caleb Thornton hadn't spoken his wife's name in 4 years. Not once. Not even at her grave. But when he found the bleeding woman in the snow, her grandson screaming, her dress soaked crimson, something cracked open inside him. Something he'd buried with Sarah and their baby girl. He didn't know this stranger would be worth more than everything he owned. He didn't know powerful men were hunting her. He only knew one thing: he couldn't let another woman die while he stood helpless. This time, he would fight. If you want to follow Caleb's journey to the end, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. The gunshot echoed across the valley like a crack of thunder. Caleb Thornton reined his horse to a stop, his breath clouding in the bitter Colorado air. He'd been tracking the mountain lion that killed 3 of his goats for 2 days now. The cat's prints were fresh in the snow leading toward Miller's Ridge. Another shot. Then another. Not hunting shots. Too fast. Too desperate. Caleb turned his mare east toward the sound. His rifle was loaded, his instincts honed by 4 years of cavalry service, and 3 more as a deputy marshal screamed that something was wrong. The third shot came with a scream, high, terrified, a child's scream. Caleb kicked his horse into a gallop. The overturned stagecoach lay on its side like a wounded animal. One wheel still spun lazily in the wind. The horses were gone, cut loose, or bolted in panic. Luggage scattered across the snow, dark shapes against endless white. And blood. A trail of it leading from the coach to a woman crumpled against a boulder. A boy crouched over her, shaking her shoulders. Grandma, please wake up." Caleb dismounted before his horse fully stopped. His boots punched through the snow as he ran toward them. The boy spun around, terror in his eyes. He couldn't be more than 8. Blonde hair, freckles, a face too young for the fear it held. "Please," the boy gasped. "Please help her. She won't wake up." Caleb dropped to his knees beside the woman. She was older, 50s maybe, with dark red hair streaked silver, now matted with blood. Her dress, expensive by the look of it, was torn at the sleeve. And beneath the tear, a bullet wound. Still bleeding. "She's been shot," Caleb said, more to himself than the boy. "The bad men," the boy whispered. "They shot at us. The driver ran away. Grandma made me hide under the seat." Caleb pressed his hand against the wound. The woman moaned but didn't open her eyes. Her skin was ice cold. How long had they been out here? "What's your name, son?" "Samuel." "Sam." The boy's teeth chattered. "Is she gonna die?" Caleb looked at the sky. Dark clouds rolling in from the west. Another storm coming, and it would be a bad one. They were at least 6 miles from his cabin. In this cold with a wounded woman and a child. "Not if I can help it," Caleb said. "Sam, I need you to be brave. Can you do that?" The boy nodded, though his whole body trembled. "Good. Help me lift her." The ride to his cabin took longer than Caleb wanted. He held the woman across his saddle, her weight slight, but her breathing shallow. Sam sat behind him, small arms wrapped tight around Caleb's waist, face pressed against his back. The boy hadn't spoken since they'd left the wreck. Not a word. Just held on like his life depended on it. Maybe it did. The storm hit when they were still a mile out. Wind that cut like knives. Snow so thick Caleb could barely see his horse's ears. He navigated by instinct, by memory, by the desperate need to get these strangers to safety. When the cabin finally appeared through the white curtain, Caleb nearly wept with relief. He kicked open the door and carried the woman inside, laying her on his bed. The fire had burned low, but embers still glowed. Sam stood frozen in the doorway, snow coating his thin coat. "Close the door, son. Get by the fire." Sam obeyed mechanically. His eyes never left his grandmother's pale face. Caleb built up the fire, then turned his attention to the wound. The bullet had gone through a small mercy, but she'd lost blood. Too much blood. He cleaned the wound with whiskey, stitched it with the same thread he used to mend harness leather. The woman stirred once, crying out, but didn't wake. "Is she dying?" Sam asked from beside the fire. His voice was flat, empty. Caleb looked at the boy, really looked. Those eyes had seen too much. Whatever had happened out there, it wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. "She's strong," Caleb said. "I can see it in her, but she needs rest and warmth." "She's all I have." Sam's voice cracked. "Mama and Papa are dead. If Grandma dies too—" The boy didn't finish, didn't need to. Caleb crossed to him, knelt down so they were eye to eye. "What's your grandmother's name?" "Margaret. Margaret Holloway. Everyone calls her Maggie." Holloway. The name hit Caleb like a fist. Everyone in Colorado Territory knew the Holloway Ranch. 30,000 acres, 3,000 head of cattle, one of the biggest operations west of Denver. And this woman, this bleeding, unconscious woman in his bed, owned it all. "Sam," Caleb said carefully, "who were the men who shot at you?" The boy's face went pale. His hands clenched into small fists. "I can't tell you." "Why not?" "Because Grandma said not to trust anyone." Sam looked at Caleb, and there was something ancient in those young eyes. "She said they'd come looking for us. She said they'd hurt anyone who helped us." Caleb felt a cold that had nothing to do with the storm outside. "Who's Sam? Who's coming?" The boy shook his head, pressed his lips together, refused to speak. The woman Maggie woke near midnight. Caleb was dozing in his chair when he heard her sharp intake of breath. He was on his feet instantly, crossing to the bed. Her eyes snapped open. Brown eyes, warm but sharp. They took in the cabin, Caleb's face, the sleeping boy curled up on a bedroll by the fire, all in one sweeping glance. "Samuel," she breathed. "He's safe, ma'am. Just sleeping." She tried to sit up, winced, fell back. Her hand went to her arm, found the bandage. "You stitched me up." "Best I could. Bullet went through clean." "Where are we?" "My cabin. About 12 miles east of Silverton." She closed her eyes and Caleb saw relief wash over her features, but it was followed quickly by something else. Calculation, assessment. "How did you find us?" "Heard the shots, followed the sound." "And you brought us here, a stranger, 2 strangers." She opened her eyes, fixed him with that piercing gaze. "Why?" Caleb shrugged. "Seemed like the right thing to do. Most men would have left us, wouldn't want the trouble." "I ain't most men." Something flickered in her expression. Interest maybe, or gratitude. Hard to tell. "What's your name?" "Caleb Thornton." "Well, Mr. Thornton, I'm in your debt." She paused. "What happened to our driver?" "Sam said he ran." Her jaw tightened. "Of course he did." "You want to tell me what's going on, ma'am? Who shot you?" Silence stretched between them. The fire crackled. Outside, the storm howled like something hungry. "No," she finally said. "I don't want to tell you. And you don't want to know." "With respect, ma'am, you're bleeding in my bed. Your grandson's scared half to death. There's a blizzard outside that'll last 2 days at least." Caleb leaned forward. "I reckon I deserve to know what kind of trouble I'm keeping under my roof." Maggie studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "My husband's brother, Victor Holloway. He wants the ranch." "Wants it how?" "He wants me declared incompetent, wants control of my grandson's inheritance. And if that doesn't work—" She gestured to her wounded arm. "He wants us dead." The words hung in the air between them. "Your own family." Family. She said the word like it tasted bitter. "Victor has never been family. He's been waiting for this ranch his whole life. Waiting for my husband to die. Waiting for my son to die." Her voice broke slightly on the last word. "Now he only has to wait for me. Your son, killed. 3 years ago, Him and his wife. A stage robbery, they called it. Her eyes glistened. It wasn't robbery. The driver was paid. I have proof. That's why I was going to Silverton. To give the documents to the sheriff. To finally... She stopped. Pressed a hand over her eyes. Caleb waited. He'd learned in his years as a lawman that silence drew out more than questions. Samuel saw it, she whispered. Saw his parents die. He was 5 years old. He didn't speak for 8 months after. 8 months of silence. And now you're running again. Now I'm fighting. Her eyes met his fierce through the tears. I'm done running, Mr. Thornton. I've gathered enough evidence to hang Victor 3 times over. I just need to get it to the right people. Where are these documents? She hesitated, then reached beneath her dress into a hidden pocket and withdrew a leather folder. Here, everything. Bank records, witness statements, a letter from Victor to the driver who killed my son. Caleb stared at the folder. Such a small thing to be worth killing for. You've been carrying this the whole time. I don't let it out of my sight. She clutched it to her chest. It's all I have. All Thomas and Catherine have. Without this, Victor wins. He gets the ranch, gets Samuel, gets everything he ever wanted. And you end up dead. Yes. Simple. Matter of fact. I end up dead. The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. Caleb sat back, processing everything she'd told him. A land dispute turned deadly. A family torn apart by greed. A boy who'd watched his parents die. And now they were here, in his cabin, in his care. How long till Victor comes looking? A day, maybe 2. The storm will slow him down, but he won't stop. He can't afford to. If I reach the authorities with these documents, his whole scheme falls apart. Exactly. Caleb looked toward the fire where Sam slept on. The boy's face was peaceful in sleep, younger somehow, vulnerable. Ma'am? Maggie. Call me Maggie. You've seen me bleed and stitched me back together. I think we're past formalities. A ghost of a smile touched Caleb's lips. Maggie, then. I'm going to be straight with you. I'm just a rancher with a few goats and a cabin in the middle of nowhere. I ain't a lawman anymore. I ain't anymore. She caught the word. You were law. Deputy Marshal. Abilene. Before I came here. Hun? Why did you leave? The question was simple. The answer was anything but. Caleb looked at the cradle in the corner. The empty cradle he couldn't bring himself to burn or give away. 4 years, and it still sat there, a monument to everything he'd lost. My wife, he said quietly. And my daughter. Typhoid took them. 4 years ago. Maggie's expression softened. I'm sorry. I wasn't there. When they got sick. I was chasing outlaws 3 counties over. By the time I got word, by the time I rode back. He stopped, swallowed. Sarah was already gone. The baby lived another 2 days. Silence. But it was a different kind of silence now. Understanding, not suspicion. So you came here, Maggie said. To be alone. Seemed easier. Not being around people. Not being reminded. Did it work? Caleb thought about the past 4 years. The endless quiet. The conversations with ghosts. The slow erosion of everything that made him human. No, he admitted. It didn't. Maggie watched him with those perceptive eyes. Then maybe it's time to try something different. Morning came gray and cold. The storm had settled into a steady snowfall, not the violent blizzard of the night before, but enough to keep anyone trapped indoors. Sam woke first, scrambling to his grandmother's side. Grandma, you're awake. I'm awake, sweetheart. Maggie wrapped her good arm around him. I'm right here. I was so scared. There was so much blood and you wouldn't wake up and... Shh, I know. But Mr. Thornton found us. He took care of us. Sam looked at Caleb, who was stoking the fire. Thank you, the boy said solemnly. For saving my grandma. You're welcome, son. I'm not your son. It came out sharp. Then Sam's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I didn't mean my papa used to call me son. Before. Sam. Maggie's voice was gentle but firm. It's all right. Mr. Thornton understands. Caleb nodded. I do. And I'm sorry. I won't call you that again. Sam wiped his eyes roughly. No, you can call me that. If you want. It's just hard sometimes. Something twisted in Caleb's chest. This boy, 8 years old, orphaned, hunted, was trying so hard to be brave. How about breakfast? Caleb said, changing the subject. I've got some salt pork and biscuits. Nothing fancy, but it'll warm you up. They ate in near silence. Maggie could sit up now, though she moved carefully, mindful of her wound. Sam stayed close to her, as if afraid she might disappear if he looked away. The storm should blow over by tomorrow, Caleb said. Day after at the latest. Then we can figure out how to get you to Silverton. Maggie raised an eyebrow. You think I'm going to let you walk into town alone, with a gunshot wound and a child, while your brother-in-law's men are hunting you? I didn't ask for your help. No, you didn't, but you've got it anyway. Their eyes met across the table. Maggie's expression was unreadable. You don't know what you're getting into, Mr. Thornton. Caleb. And I've got a pretty good idea. Victor has money. Men, connections in the territorial government, the land fraud scheme, it goes higher than him, railroad officials, politicians. If they find out you helped us, then I reckon I'll have made some powerful enemies. You could die. Caleb shrugged. Everybody dies. Might as well be for something that matters. Sam looked between them. Are you two going to fight? No, sweetheart, Maggie said. We're just discussing. It sounded like fighting. Sam frowned. Mama and Papa used to discuss like that too, before they stopped. The innocent observation cut through the tension. Maggie's face softened. Caleb found himself suppressing a smile. Your grandma and I have different opinions, Caleb said, but we both want the same thing, to keep you safe. And to make Uncle Victor pay for what he did, Sam added. His voice was hard, too hard for a child. Sam, Maggie started. He killed Mama and Papa. I know he did. You don't have to pretend anymore, Grandma. I'm not a baby. The room fell silent. Maggie reached for her grandson's hand. No, you're not a baby. You haven't been for a long time. She looked at Caleb over Sam's head. He deserves to know the truth, all of it. Are you sure? He's lived with the lies long enough. So Maggie told him. Everything. About Victor's gambling debts, about the land fraud scheme, about the letter proving he'd hired the men who killed Thomas and Catherine. Sam listened without interrupting. His face went from pale to ashen. His hands trembled in his lap. When she finished, he said only one thing. Good. Good. Maggie repeated, confused. Good that we have proof. Good that he's going to get what he deserves. Sam's jaw set in a way that made him look startlingly like his grandfather. Papa always said that bad men get away with things because good people don't fight back. We're fighting back. Caleb felt something shift inside him. This boy had every reason to be broken, to collapse into grief and fear. Instead, he was finding his spine. Maybe courage wasn't about age. Maybe it was about having something worth fighting for. Sam, Caleb said, your papa sounds like he was a wise man. He was, the best. Sam's eyes met Caleb's. Are you a good man, Mr. Thornton? The question hit harder than Caleb expected. Was he? He'd spent 4 years hiding from the world. 4 years nursing his grief like a wound he didn't want to heal. He'd told himself it was honoring Sarah's memory. But was it, I'm trying to be, he said finally. Some days are harder than others. Sam nodded as if this answer satisfied him. That's what Papa said too. He said being good isn't something you are. It's something you do, every day. Maggie's eyes shimmered. Thomas told you that? Yeah, the day before. Sam stopped, swallowed. The day before. Caleb stood abruptly, needing to move. I should check on the animals. Make sure they survive the night. I'll come, Sam said quickly. I can help. Maggie looked like she wanted to object, but something in her grandson's face stopped her. Dress warm, she said instead, and don't stay out too long. Outside, the world was white and silent. The storm had piled snow waist-high against the cabin walls. Caleb's small barn, more of a lean-to, really sat half-buried in drifts. Sam waded through the snow beside him, his breath coming in small puffs. Mr. Thornton. Yeah. That cradle in your cabin, was it for your baby? Caleb's step faltered. Yes. What was her name? Lily. That's pretty. Sam considered this. My mama's name was Catherine, but Papa called her Katie. They reached the barn. Inside, Caleb's goats huddled together for warmth, bleating plaintively when they saw him. They're hungry, Sam observed. Always are. Caleb showed Sam how to distribute the hay, how to check the water trough for ice. The boy worked diligently, his small hands mimicking Caleb's movements. Mr. Thornton. Yeah. Do you think my papa would be mad at me? Caleb paused. Mad why? Because I couldn't save him. When the bad men came, I was hiding under the seat. Grandma told me to hide. But maybe if I'd done something... Sam. Caleb knelt in the hay, putting himself at the boy's level. Look at me. Sam looked. His eyes were wet. There was nothing you could have done. You were 5 years old, against grown men with guns. If you'd tried to help, you'd be dead too, and your grandma would have lost everyone. But your papa wanted you to live. That's why your grandma told you to hide, because your papa would have wanted that more than anything. Caleb's voice caught. Trust me, I know. If I could trade my life for my daughter's, if Sarah could have traded hers, we would have. In a heartbeat. That's what parents do. Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then very softly, do you miss them? Every day. Does it ever stop hurting? Caleb thought about lying, thought about offering false comfort. But this boy had earned better than that. No, he said honestly, it doesn't stop, but it changes. It gets easier to carry. Sam nodded slowly. Then without warning he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Caleb's waist. Caleb froze. It had been years, since anyone had touched him with affection. He'd forgotten what it felt like. The warmth, the trust. Slowly, carefully, he put his arms around the boy. I'm glad you found us. Sam mumbled against his coat. Caleb's throat tightened. Me too, son. Me too. When they returned to the cabin, Maggie was standing by the window. Her face was pale. Someone's coming. Caleb moved fast, pulling Sam behind him, reaching for his rifle. How many? I can't tell. The snow's too thick, but I saw movement on the ridge. Could be a traveler, someone caught in the storm. Could be. Her voice said she didn't believe it. Caleb positioned himself by the door, rifle ready. Sam, get back by the fire. If anything happens, there's a root cellar under that rug. You take your grandma and hide. Don't come out till I tell you. But do as he says, Samuel. Maggie's voice was steel. The minutes stretched. Caleb watched through a crack in the shutter, trying to spot movement in the swirling white. There. A shape. Then another. 2 riders struggling through the deep snow, moving slowly, deliberately toward his cabin. They've seen the smoke, Caleb muttered. Maggie moved to his side. Can you tell who they are? Not yet. Too far. The riders drew closer. Close enough now to make out details. 2 men on horseback. Heavy coats. One rode a dark bay. The other rode a distinctive gray horse. Maggie drew a sharp breath. Victor, Caleb's jaw tightened. You're sure? I'd know that horse anywhere. It was my husband's. Victor took it after William died. So the enemy had found them. Faster than expected. Faster than should have been possible. The driver? Maggie whispered, realization dawning. He didn't just abandon us. He told Victor where we were heading. Seems that way. What do we do? Caleb checked his rifle. 12 shots. 2 men. Bad odds if they were determined. Worse, if they'd brought others who were circling around. I'm going to talk to them. You can't. If I don't, they'll kick down the door, and then things get bloody. Caleb looked at her steadily. Stay inside. Keep Sam hidden. I'll handle this. Before she could argue, he opened the door and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit him like a physical blow. The wind whipped snow into his face, half blinding him. But he kept his rifle visible, kept his posture steady. The riders stopped about 20 yards out. That's far enough, Caleb called. The man on the gray horse pushed back his hood. Caleb saw a thin face, sharp features, dark hair slicked with pomade even in this weather. Eyes that glittered with cold intelligence. Good afternoon, Victor Holloway said, his voice carrying across the wind. I'm looking for my sister-in-law, Margaret Holloway. I have reason to believe she may have sought shelter in this area. Don't know anyone by that name. Victor smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. No, strange. Her stagecoach was found wrecked not 5 miles from here. Blood on the snow. Signs of someone being carried off. Lot of wrecks happen in blizzards. Lot of blood gets spilled. Indeed. Victor's gaze traveled over the cabin, the smoke from the chimney, the fresh tracks in the snow. You live here alone, Mr. Thornton. And what business is it of yours? None at all. I'm simply a concerned family member searching for my brother's widow and his grandson. Victor paused. A young boy, 8 years old, blonde hair. Have you seen him? No. The lie came easily. Caleb had told plenty of them as a lawman, had learned to keep his face blank, his voice steady. Victor studied him for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat. Caleb's rifle came up. Hands where I can see them. Easy, Mr. Thornton. I'm simply retrieving something. Slowly, Victor withdrew a leather wallet. From it, he pulled several bills. There's a reward for information leading to my family's safe return. $500. $500. More than Caleb made in 2 years. Generous. Margaret is unwell. She's been making accusations, wild claims. She needs help, proper help, the kind only family can provide. And the boy, Samuel, is my heir now that his father is gone. My responsibility. I only want what's best for him. Caleb held the man's gaze, saw the smooth confidence, the practiced concern, the absolute certainty that money could buy anything, and beneath it all the cold calculation of a predator. Haven't seen them, Caleb said again. Now I'd appreciate if you'd move on. Storm's getting worse, and I've got animals to tend. Victor's smile flickered. For just a moment, something ugly showed through rage maybe, or frustration. Then the mask was back. Of course. My apologies for disturbing you. He turned his horse, then paused. But Mr. Thornton, if you do happen to see them, remember what I said. $500, and my gratitude. He tipped his hat and rode back into the storm, his companion following. Caleb watched until they disappeared into the white. Then he turned and went back inside. Maggie stood where he'd left her, Sam clutching her good hand. Well? She asked. Caleb set down his rifle. He knows you're here, or suspects. He'll be back, with more men next time. How long do we have? Till the storm breaks, maybe a day, maybe less. Maggie's face was pale, but her voice was steady. Then we don't have time to wait. We need to get to Silverton tonight. In this storm, with your arm, with Sam. We don't have a choice. Caleb shook his head. We'd never make it. 6 miles in a blizzard with Victor's men looking for us, you'd be dead before sunrise. Then what do you suggest? Caleb looked at the fire, at the walls he'd built with his own hands, at the cabin that had been his tomb for 4 years. I suggest we make a stand. Right here. Sam stepped forward. You mean fight them? I mean be ready to fight. But more than that, I mean outsmart them. Caleb's mind was working now, the lawman's instincts coming back to life. Victor thinks he's hunting rabbits. Let's show him he's cornered wolves. Maggie studied him. You have a plan. The beginning of one. Caleb met her eyes. But I need to know something first. How far are you willing to go to protect Sam, to bring Victor down? The woman who answered wasn't the wounded victim he'd carried through the snow. This was Margaret Holloway, rancher, widow, grandmother, survivor. All the way, Mr. Thornton. To the very end. Caleb nodded. For the first time in 4 years, he felt something other than grief. He felt alive. Then let's get to work. They worked through the night. Caleb showed Maggie the root cellar beneath the cabin floor, a space barely large enough for 2 people hidden under a heavy oak trapdoor. He'd dug it himself back when he still believed in futures worth preparing for. If they breach the door, you take Sam down there, he said. Don't come out till you hear my voice, only my voice. And if I don't hear it, then you wait till dark and head south. There's a hunting cabin about 4 miles up the ridge. Yellow cloth tied to the trees will mark the path. Maggie grabbed his arm. I'm not hiding in a hole while you die for us. You're not dying for nothing while your grandson watches. Caleb's voice was hard. That boy's already seen his parents murdered. I won't let him see you go the same way. And what about what he sees happen to you? The question stopped him. Caleb looked at Sam, who sat by the fire, pretending not to listen. His small hands working a piece of kindling into something unrecognizable. He barely knows me. He knows enough. Maggie stepped closer, her voice dropping. He asked me this morning if you were going to leave us, like everyone else. What did you tell him? I told him I didn't know. Her eyes held his. Was I wrong? Caleb didn't answer, couldn't answer. Because the truth was more complicated than yes or no. The truth was that part of him, the part that had died with Sarah and Lily, wanted nothing more than to send these strangers away and return to his quiet grave of a life. But another part, a part he'd thought long buried, that part wanted to fight. Get some rest, he said finally. Both of you. I'll take first watch. Maggie studied him a moment longer, then nodded. She crossed to Sam, spoke softly, guided him toward the bed. The boy went without protest, exhausted beyond his years. Caleb settled into his chair by the window, rifle across his knees. Outside, the storm continued its assault. Inside, the fire crackled and popped, the only sound in the heavy silence. He didn't expect to sleep. But sometime in the small hours, exhaustion claimed him. He dreamed of Sarah, of her laugh, of the way she'd looked at him on their wedding day like he was something precious, something worth keeping. Then the dream shifted. Sarah's face became Maggie's. Same warmth in the eyes, same steel beneath the softness. Wake up, Dream Maggie said. Caleb, wake up. He jolted awake to find the real Maggie shaking his shoulder. Dawn light filtered through the shutters. The storm had quieted. What is it? Sam's gone. The words hit him like cold water. Caleb was on his feet, instantly scanning the cabin. The boy's coat was missing. His boots. The door. The door was unbarred. How long? I don't know. I woke up and he wasn't there. Maggie's voice cracked. I thought he was with you. I thought... Caleb grabbed his coat, his rifle. Stay here. I'm coming with you. Your arm is fine. She snatched the pistol from the table. That's my grandson out there. There was no time to argue. Caleb threw open the door and plunged into the gray morning. The snow had stopped, but the world was transformed. drifts piled higher than a man's head in places. The cold was brutal, cutting through clothes like they weren't there. Caleb spotted tracks almost immediately, small boots heading toward the barn. This way. They found Sam behind the lean-to, crouched in the snow, utterly still. He was staring at something in his hands. "Sam!" Maggie rushed forward, falling to her knees beside him. "What are you doing out here? You scared me half to death." The boy didn't respond, didn't move. His face was pale, tear tracks frozen on his cheeks. "Sam." Maggie's voice softened. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Slowly, Sam opened his hands. Nestled in his palms was a small wooden horse, crudely carved but recognizable. Its legs were broken. "I made this for Papa," Sam whispered. "For his birthday. He said he'd keep it forever. He said—" His voice broke. "I found it in my coat pocket. I forgot it was there. I forgot." Maggie pulled him close, wrapping her arms around his shaking body. "Oh, sweetheart." "I'm forgetting him, Grandma. I tried to remember his face this morning and I couldn't. Not all of it. Just pieces." Sam's sobs came harder now. "What if I forget everything? What if he disappears?" Caleb stood back, feeling like an intruder on something sacred. But Sam's words echoed in his chest like rifle shots. He knew that fear, lived with it every day. The terror of losing not just the person, but the memory of them. Of watching them fade like morning mist until nothing remained but absence. "You won't forget," Caleb heard himself say. Sam looked up, his face blotchy and wet. "How do you know?" Caleb crouched down, meeting the boy's eyes. "Because the people we love, they become part of us. Not just in here." He tapped his temple. "But here." He touched his chest. "The way you tilt your head when you're thinking hard. Did your papa do that?" Sam blinked. "Grandma says I look just like him when I do that." "And the way you work with your hands, making things. Who taught you?" "Papa. He carved me animals when I was little." "See, he's in your hands, in your habits, in the way you stand up straight when you're scared." Caleb's voice roughened. "You carry him with you, Sam, every day, even when you don't realize it." Sam stared at him for a long moment. Then very quietly, "Do you carry your wife like that?" The question should have hurt, would have hurt yesterday, but something had shifted in the night. Some wall had cracked. "I try too," Caleb said. "Some days I'm better at it than others." Sam looked down at the broken horse in his hands. "Can you fix it?" "I can try." The boy held it out. A offering. A test. Caleb took the wooden horse, carefully examining the damage. 2 legs snapped clean off, but the brakes were smooth, fixable with patience. "I'll need some glue," he said. "And time. But yeah, I think I can make it whole again." Sam's face didn't exactly smile, but some of the devastation eased. "We should get inside," Maggie said softly, "before we all freeze." They made their way back to the cabin, Sam walking between them. When they reached the door, the boy stopped. "Mr. Thornton." "Yeah." "Thank you." Sam's voice was small but steady. "For not lying to me. Grown-ups always lie about the hard stuff. They think it helps. It doesn't." Caleb nodded. "I know." Inside, Maggie rebuilt the fire while Caleb set to work on the wooden horse. Sam watched him intently, studying every movement, every tool. "Where'd you learn to carve?" the boy asked. "My father. He was a carpenter before the war, made furniture for fancy folks back east." "Was he good?" "The best I ever saw." Caleb smiled slightly at the memory. He used to say that wood remembers. Every tree has a story. A good carver just helps tell it. Do you believe that? I believe in honoring what came before, in making something broken whole again. He glanced at Sam. "That good enough?" The boy considered this with the gravity of a judge. "Yeah, I reckon it is." Caleb nearly laughed. The kid had picked up the Western speech already. "You reckon, do you?" Sam almost smiled. "Grandma says I'm a quick study." "Your grandma's right about a lot of things." From across the room, Maggie made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Don't let that go to his head, Mr. Thornton." "Caleb," he said without thinking. "Call me Caleb." Something passed between them. A look, an acknowledgement. Maggie nodded slowly. "Caleb, then." They spent the morning preparing. Caleb showed them escape routes, hiding places, signals. He cleaned his weapons, checked his ammunition, reinforced the door hinges with spare iron. Maggie watched him work with that assessing gaze of hers. "You've done this before." "Done what?" "Prepared for siege. You move like a man who's defended more than goats." "I told you, I was a lawman." "There's lawman, and there's soldier." She tilted her head. "Which were you first?" Caleb's hands stilled on the rifle he was cleaning. "Does it matter?" "Everything matters. Every piece of a person tells you who they are." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Union Cavalry. 3 years. Chickamauga, Chattanooga, Nashville." "You saw action." "Too much." He resumed cleaning, his movements mechanical. "When the war ended, I didn't know how to be anything else. Marshal's badge seemed like a way to keep doing what I knew. Protecting people, fighting bad men." "Why did you stop?" "I told you. Sarah and Lily died, yes. But men have lost families before and kept working, kept fighting." Her voice was gentle but relentless. "What made you run?" The question hung in the air. Caleb's jaw tightened. "Because I failed them." The words came out harsh, jagged. "I was supposed to protect them. That was my job, my purpose. And when it mattered most, when they needed me, I wasn't there." "You were doing your duty." "My duty was to them." The outburst surprised even Caleb. He took a breath, forcing calm. "I chose strangers over my own family. Chased outlaws while my wife and baby died alone. And I couldn't look at yourself anymore." Maggie finished quietly. Caleb said nothing. "Couldn't." "So you came here. To punish yourself. To make sure you never failed anyone again by never letting anyone close enough to fail." Seemed simpler. And has it been simple? He thought about the empty years, the silence that pressed in like a physical weight, the slow erosion of everything that made him human. "No," he admitted. "It's been hell." Maggie rose from her chair, crossed to where he sat. She moved carefully, mindful of her wounded arm, but there was nothing fragile in her bearing. "I know something about hell," she said. "I've lived there for 3 years, watching Victor circle closer, knowing what he did to Thomas and Catherine, raising Sam while pretending everything was fine. Why didn't you go to the law sooner?" "I tried." Bitterness crept into her voice. "Victor has friends, important friends. The first sheriff I approached, the investigation disappeared. The witnesses I found recanted. One of them died in a hunting accident a week after talking to me." Jesus. "I learned to be patient, to gather evidence quietly, to trust no one." She met his eyes. "Until now." "Why me?" "You don't know me." "I know enough." She reached out, touched his hand. Her fingers were cold, but the gesture was warm. "I know you could have left us in the snow. I know you lied to Victor's face to protect us. I know you're teaching my grandson how to grieve without breaking. That doesn't make me trustworthy." "No, this does." She held his gaze. "You're still here. Despite everything. Despite how hard you've tried to disappear. You're still here, and you're still fighting." Caleb looked at her hand on his, felt something crack open in his chest that he'd thought was sealed forever. "I don't know if I remember how," he said quietly, "to be someone worth trusting." "Then let me remind you. Before he could respond, Sam's voice cut through the moment. "Someone's coming." Caleb was at the window in an instant, rifle ready. Through the gap in the shutters, he saw riders approaching. 4 of them this time, moving in formation. "Is it Victor?" Maggie asked, joining him. "Can't tell yet. Too far." But even as he watched, one rider broke ahead of the others. The distinctive gray horse was unmistakable. "It's him, and he's brought friends." "What do we do?" Caleb's mind raced through options. 4 men against 1 with a wounded woman and a child to protect. The cabin was defensible but not against determined assault. If they had dynamite, if they decided to just burn him out, get Sam to the cellar. "Caleb." "Now Maggie." She hesitated only a second, then moved. Sam was already pulling back the rug, revealing the trapdoor. "I don't want to hide," the boy said. "I know, but your grandma needs you to be brave. Can you do that?" Sam's jaw tightened. He nodded once, then climbed down into the darkness. Maggie paused at the opening. "If something happens..." "Nothing's going to happen. If something happens," she repeated. "The documents are in my coat, inside pocket. Promise me you'll get them to the sheriff." "Maggie, promise me." Their eyes locked. In that moment, Caleb saw everything: her fear, her determination, her desperate hope. And something else. Something that looked terrifyingly like faith. "I promise," he said. She nodded, then disappeared into the cellar. Caleb lowered the trapdoor, replaced the rug, and moved to the window. The riders had stopped about 50 yards out. Victor sat tall in his saddle, scanning the cabin with those cold, calculating eyes. The 3 men with him were hard-faced, armed to the teeth. "Mr. Thornton," Victor's voice carried across the distance. "A word, if you please." Caleb checked his rifle one more time, then opened the door. He stepped out onto the porch, keeping the rifle visible but not raised. No point starting a fight he couldn't finish. "Mr. Holloway." "You remembered my name. I'm flattered." Hard to forget a man who shows up twice in 2 days. Most folks have better things to do. Victor smiled that cold smile. Most folks don't harbor fugitives. "Don't know what you're talking about." "No." Victor raised a hand, signaling one of his men. The rider moved forward, tossing something into the snow at Caleb's feet. A woman's shawl, dark red wool edged with lace. "We found this on the road, near the wrecked stagecoach." Victor's eyes glittered. Expensive piece, the kind a wealthy widow might wear. Caleb didn't look at the shawl, didn't react. "Could belong to anyone." "It could." Victor nudged his horse forward, closing the distance. "But I don't think it does. I think my sister-in-law is in that cabin right now. I think she's hiding, hoping I'll go away. And I think you know exactly where she is." "Think whatever you want." "I will." Victor's pleasant mask slipped, revealing something ugly beneath. "But let me be clear, Mr. Thornton. Margaret Holloway is a sick woman. She's been making dangerous accusations that could destroy innocent people. All I want is to bring her home, get her the help she needs." Funny way of helping, shooting at her stagecoach. Something flickered in Victor's eyes, surprise quickly hidden. "I don't know what you've been told, but..." "I saw the wound. Bullet went clean through her arm." Caleb stepped forward. "Now I may be just a simple rancher, but I know the difference between a robbery and an ambush. And I know what it looks like when someone wants a person dead, not robbed." The mask fell away completely. Victor's face hardened into something savage. "You're making a serious mistake." "Wouldn't be my first." "Do you know who I am? What I can do to you?" "I know exactly who you are." Caleb's voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. "You're a man who murders his own family for money, who kills a father and mother in front of their 5-year-old son, who hunts a woman and child through a blizzard because he can't stand the thought of them telling the truth about him." Victor went pale, then red. His hand dropped to his pistol. I'd think real careful about that, Caleb said. I've got a rifle already aimed at your chest. You might get a shot off, but you won't get two. The moment stretched taut as a bowstring. Then Victor laughed. It was a harsh, unpleasant sound. You're protecting a crazy woman, Mr. Thornton, a delusional widow who's convinced herself that I'm some kind of monster. When the truth comes out, and it will, you'll see how foolish you've been. Maybe. But that's a problem for another day. It's a problem for right now. Victor's voice dropped. Because I'm not leaving without her, one way or another. Caleb shifted his grip on the rifle. Then I reckon we've got a problem. For a long moment, neither man moved. The wind whipped snow between them, cold and indifferent. Then one of Victor's men spoke up. Boss, we've got company. All heads turned. Coming up the trail from the south was another rider. This one wore a silver star on his chest that caught the weak winter sun. Sheriff Tom Brennan, a man Caleb knew by reputation, honest, competent, not easily bought. Well now, Brennan called as he approached, taking in the scene with a lawman's quick assessment. Looks like I'm interrupting something. Victor's expression shifted to practiced charm. Sheriff, what brings you out this way? Got a telegram from Silverton this morning. Seems there's some federal marshals heading this way. Something about land fraud and possible murder charges. Brennan's eyes moved to Caleb. They're asking about a woman named Maggie Holloway. Said she might be in this area. What a coincidence, Victor said smoothly. I was just explaining to Mr. Thornton here that I'm searching for Margaret myself. She's my brother's widow. Mentally unstable, I'm afraid. I'm concerned for her safety. That's so. Brennan's voice was neutral. And the men with guns, they part of your concern. Protection. The wilderness is dangerous. The sheriff nodded slowly. Then he turned to Caleb. Thornton, isn't it mind if I come inside, warm up a bit? Caleb hesitated only a second. Sure, Sheriff. Coffee's on. He opened the door, stepped aside to let Brennan through. As the sheriff passed, their eyes met. Brennan knew, or suspected. Wait here, Victor said sharply, moving to follow. Brennan turned, one hand resting casually on his holstered pistol. This is between me and Mr. Thornton Holloway. Official business. I'm sure you understand. Victor's jaw tightened. For a moment, Caleb thought he might push it. Then the rancher forced a smile. Of course. We'll wait. Inside, Brennan surveyed the cabin with quick, thorough glances. His gaze paused on the displaced rug, the slightly uneven floor beneath it. Nice place, he said. Quiet. I like it that way. I imagine you do. Brennan turned to face him. The telegram mentioned documents, evidence of some kind. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Caleb met the lawman's eyes, saw the question there, the test. What if I did? Then I'd say those documents should reach the proper authorities, before anything unfortunate happens to them, or to the people carrying them. And Victor? Holloway's connected, got friends in high places. Brennan's voice hardened. But there's limits. Federal marshals don't answer to territorial politicians, and murder charges have a way of making friends scarce. Caleb considered the man before him. Honest, yes, but honest men could still be outgunned, outmaneuvered. Why should I trust you? Because I knew William Holloway. He was a good man. His widow wrote me after he died, told me her suspicions about Victor. I couldn't act then. No evidence, no witnesses willing to talk. Brennan's jaw tightened. But now there's federal interest. Now there's a chance. A chance isn't a guarantee. No, it isn't. The sheriff stepped closer. But I've been waiting 3 years for this, Thornton. 3 years of watching Victor Holloway get away with whatever he wants. If there's evidence that can bring him down, real evidence, I'll fight to my last breath to see it through. The words rang true. Caleb had interrogated enough liars to recognize honesty when he heard it. Wait here, he said. He moved to the trap door, pulled back the rug, knocked twice. A moment later, the door lifted. Maggie's face appeared pale, but composed. She looked at Brennan, then at Caleb. "It's all right," Caleb said. "He's on our side." Slowly, she emerged from the cellar, Sam climbing up behind her. The boy immediately moved to Caleb's side, pressing close. Brennan's expression softened when he saw them. "Mrs. Holloway, it's been a long time." "Sheriff Brennan?" Maggie's voice was steady. "I wasn't sure you'd remember me." "I remember everything about that day. Everything you told me." He stepped forward. "I'm sorry I couldn't help then, but things have changed. The federal government is interested. They've got evidence of railroad fraud that leads right to Victor's doorstep. All they need is this." Maggie reached into her coat, withdrew the leather folder. "Everything. Bank records, witness statements, a letter from Victor to the driver who killed my son." Brennan took the folder with something like reverence. He opened it, scanned the contents, and his face hardened. "This is it. This is enough." "What happens now?" Sam asked, his voice small. The sheriff looked down at the boy. His expression gentled. "Now, son, we take you somewhere safe, and we make sure the bad men get what they deserve. And Uncle Victor, your uncle is going to learn that there's no hole deep enough to hide in, not from the law." Outside, one of Victor's men shouted something. The sound of horses moving, repositioning. Brennan's hand went to his gun. "We need to move. My horse can carry Mrs. Holloway and the boy. You and I will—" The window shattered. Glass exploded inward, followed by a burning bottle that smashed against the floor. Flames erupted instantly, spreading across the dry wooden planks. "Fire!" Sam screamed. Caleb grabbed the boy, shoved him toward the back of the cabin. "The cellar! Now!" "No!" Maggie caught his arm. "We'll be trapped down there." She was right. The fire was spreading fast, fed by oil. Whoever threw that bottle knew what they were doing. "Back door," Caleb said. "Move!" They ran. Brennan kicked open the rear entrance, pistol raised. A shot cracked past his head, splintering the doorframe. "Down," the sheriff ordered, firing back. Caleb pushed Maggie and Sam to the ground, covering them with his body. More shots rang out. Victor's men had circled around, cutting off escape. "We're pinned!" Brennan shouted. The cabin was filling with smoke. Heat pressed against Caleb's back. They had minutes, maybe less. "The cellar," he said. "There's a second exit. Tunnel leads out behind the barn." "A tunnel?" "Dug it when I built the place. Old habit from the war." Brennan nodded grimly. "Go. I'll hold them here." "You'll die." "Maybe." The sheriff's eyes met his. "But those documents reach the marshals. That's what matters. Now go." There was no time to argue. Caleb grabbed Maggie's hand, pulled her back toward the cellar entrance. Sam scrambled ahead, disappearing into the darkness below. "The folder," Maggie gasped. "I gave it to Brennan. Has it. He knows what to do." They dropped into the cellar just as the ceiling above them began to groan. Fire licked at the trapdoor as Caleb pulled it shut. "This way." He grabbed a lantern from a hook, struck a match. The flame revealed a narrow passage carved into the earth. "Stay close. Don't stop." They crawled through darkness and dirt smoke seeping through the wooden supports overhead. Sam whimpered, but kept moving. Maggie coughed, pressed her hand over her mouth, pushed forward. Behind them, gunshots. Then a terrible crash as something in the cabin collapsed. Caleb didn't look back. The tunnel seemed endless. 5 minutes. 10. Then finally, fresh air. Cold and clean and beautiful. The exit was hidden behind a cluster of boulders 50 yards from the burning cabin. Caleb pushed through the snow-covered brush, pulling Maggie and Sam after him. They emerged into gray daylight, gasping, covered in soot and dirt. The cabin was an inferno now, flames reaching toward the leaden sky. "Brennan," Maggie whispered. Caleb looked back at the destruction. The sheriff hadn't emerged. None of Victor's men were visible, either scattered by the fire, maybe, or dealt with by Brennan's final stand. He bought us time. Caleb's voice was rough. We can't waste it. Where do we go? High country. I know a place. They won't find us there. Sam clung to Caleb's coat, his face streaked with tears and ash. What about the papers, the evidence? Caleb looked at the burning cabin, at everything he'd built over 4 years reduced to ash and ember, at the life he'd tried to construct from grief and solitude. Gone now, all of it. But something remained, something new. We'll get more evidence, he said. We'll find another way. This isn't over. He took Sam's hand in one of his, Maggie's in the other. Let's move. They headed into the mountains, 3 figures against the endless white, leaving the flames behind them. The cold hit them like a wall of knives. Caleb pushed forward through waist-deep snow, breaking trail for Maggie and Sam. His cabin was nothing but smoke and ember behind them now. 4 years of hiding, of grieving, of building walls against the world, all of it gone in minutes. He didn't look back. Couldn't afford to. How much farther? Maggie's voice was strained. Her wounded arm pressed tight against her side. 4 miles, maybe 5. I can make it. I know you can. Sam stumbled, went down hard. Caleb turned back, lifted him from the snow. I'm okay, the boy gasped. I can walk. You've been walking, now you ride. Caleb pulled Sam onto his back. Hold tight, don't let go. Small arms wrapped around his neck. The boy weighed almost nothing, too light for 8 years. When had he last eaten properly? They pushed on. The hunting cabin was higher up the ridge, hidden in a cluster of rocks that looked like nothing special from below. Caleb had helped build it years ago, when he still believed in community, in neighbors helping neighbors. Before Sarah. Before everything fell apart. Caleb, Maggie's hand caught his arm. Someone's following us. He stopped, listened. There, the crunch of boots in snow. Distant, but steady. How many? Can't tell. 1, maybe 2. Victor's men. Has to be. Caleb looked at the trail ahead. They were exposed here, moving across an open stretch with no cover. If their pursuers had rifles, change of plans, we're going up. Up where? Trust me. He veered left toward a steep rock face that looked impassable, but Caleb knew these mountains. He knew where the handholds were, where the ledges connected, where a man could climb if he was desperate enough. I can't climb that, Maggie said. Not with my arm. You won't have to. Caleb pointed to a narrow crevice in the rock, barely visible unless you knew to look. There's a cave. Goes back about 20 feet. You and Sam wait there. I'll draw them off. No. We stay together. Maggie. I said no. Her eyes blazed. I'm not hiding in a hole while you get yourself killed. We've been over this. This is different. How is it different? Because if they catch you, they win. Victor gets the ranch, gets Sam, gets everything. Caleb's voice dropped. But if they catch me, all they get is a stubborn fool with nothing left to lose. You're wrong about that. Maggie stepped closer, her breath clouding between them. You have something to lose, more than you realize. Their eyes held. Something passed between them, something neither of them was ready to name. Grandma. Sam's voice cut through the moment. I hear them. They're closer. The sound of pursuit was unmistakable now. Multiple sets of footsteps moving fast. Caleb made a decision. Into the cave, both of you, now. Caleb. I'll be right behind you. I just need to cover our tracks. He pushed them toward the crevice. Go, please. Something in his voice must have reached her. Maggie nodded once, then pulled Sam toward the opening. They disappeared into the darkness. Caleb worked fast. He used a pine branch to sweep away their footprints, making it look like they'd continued up the main trail. Then he created a false path, obvious enough to draw attention, leading away from the cave. The sounds of pursuit grew louder. Caleb slipped into the crevice just as 2 figures appeared on the ridge below. He pressed himself against the rock, barely breathing. "This way!" A man's voice, rough and winded. "Tracks go up." "You sure? Look for yourself." Caleb heard them pass by, following his false trail. Their voices faded as they climbed higher, chasing ghosts. He waited 5 minutes. 10. Then he moved deeper into the cave. Maggie and Sam huddled in the darkness, barely visible. Sam was shivering violently, his teeth chattering so loud Caleb could hear them. "They're gone," Caleb said. "For now. How long do we wait?" "Till dark. Then we move." "Sam can't wait that long. He's freezing." Caleb knelt beside the boy. Sam's skin was ice cold, his lips turning blue. The wet clothes from his earlier fall had soaked through. "We need fire," Caleb said. "They'll see the smoke." "Not if we do it right." He stripped off his coat, wrapped it around Sam. "Stay here. I'll be back." He spent the next 20 minutes gathering dry wood from a dead pine near the cave entrance. Built a small fire deep in the cave where the smoke would disperse through cracks in the rock rather than rising in a visible column. The warmth was meager, but it was enough. Sam stopped shivering. Color crept back into his face. "Thank you," Maggie whispered, settling beside her grandson. "Don't thank me yet. We've still got miles to go." "I know." She paused. "Caleb, what you did back there, leading them away. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. That's not the point." "Then what is—" She looked at him across the firelight. "You're not the same man who found us in that snowstorm. Something's changed." Caleb felt the truth of her words settle into his bones. Something had changed. He just wasn't sure what to do about it. "Maybe I'm remembering who I used to be," he said finally. "Who was that?" "Someone who fought for things. Someone who believed that good could win if you fought hard enough." He poked at the fire. "Sarah used to say I was the most stubborn man she'd ever met. Said I'd argue with a rock if I thought it was wrong." Maggie smiled slightly. "Sounds like a smart woman. The smartest. Smarter than me, anyway. She sounds like someone I would have liked. She would have liked you, too." The words came out before Caleb could stop them. He looked away, suddenly uncomfortable. A small hand tugged at his sleeve. "Mr. Thornton." Sam's voice was drowsy from warmth and exhaustion. "Yeah. Are you going to stay with us after this is over?" The question hit harder than any of Victor's bullets. Caleb opened his mouth closed. It tried again. "I don't know, Sam. I haven't thought that far ahead. Grandma says thinking ahead is important. She says that's how she kept Holloway Ranch running after Grandpa died." "Your grandma's a wise woman." "She likes you, I can tell." Sam's eyes were drifting closed. "I like you too. You're different from Uncle Victor." "Different how?" "You're sad, but you're not mean about it. Uncle Victor is sad too, I can see it sometimes, but he hurts people because of it." Sam yawned. "I don't want to be like that when I grow up. I want to be like you." The boy's words hung in the smoky air as sleep claimed him. Caleb sat motionless, something cracking open in his chest. "He means it," Maggie said quietly. "He doesn't say things he doesn't mean. Not anymore. I'm not worth looking up to. That's not your decision to make." She moved closer, her voice soft. "Sam lost his father. His world fell apart. And then you came along, this stranger who saved us from the snow, who stood up to Victor, who taught him that grief doesn't have to make you cruel. I didn't teach him anything. You taught him everything, just by being who you are." Caleb shook his head. "You don't know who I am." "Not really." "Then tell me." The invitation was simple, but nothing about it was easy. Caleb had spent 4 years burying his past, walling off his memories, turning himself into a ghost. Now this woman, this fierce, wounded, beautiful woman, was asking him to tear down those walls. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. But we can start with your daughter. Lily. Even the name felt like broken glass in his throat. She lived 3 days. Caleb said, his voice barely above a whisper. 3 days. Long enough to open her eyes. Long enough to grip my finger with her tiny hand. Long enough for me to make her 1,000 promises I couldn't keep. What kind of promises? That I'd always protect her. That I'd teach her to ride and shoot and read. That I'd walk her down the aisle someday. His voice cracked. That I'd be there. Always. But you weren't there when she died. No. Sarah called for me, the neighbor told me afterward. Called my name over and over as the fever took her, and I was 40 miles away chasing a man who'd stolen some cattle. The bitterness in his voice was acid. Cattle. I traded my family's lives for cattle. You didn't know, didn't I? Caleb looked at her, and all the grief he'd buried came flooding back. I knew Sarah wasn't feeling well when I left. I knew there was sickness in the territory. But I went anyway because that was my job. Because people were counting on me. And your family was counting on you too. Yes, and I failed them. Maggie was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. My son Thomas was a lot like you, she said. Dedicated, principled, always putting duty before self. When I told him my suspicions about Victor, he insisted on investigating himself. I begged him to be careful, begged him to let the law handle it. He didn't listen. No. He said some things were too important to leave to others. Said a man had to stand for something, or he stood for nothing. Her grip tightened. He was right, and he died for it, but I've never once wished he'd been different. Even knowing how it ended. Especially knowing. She held his gaze. Thomas died fighting for justice, for his family, for what he believed in. There's no shame in that. The shame would have been in doing nothing. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you think. Her voice hardened. You've been punishing yourself for 4 years, Caleb. Telling yourself you're worthless because you weren't there when Sarah needed you. But what would she say if she could see you now? She'd say. He stopped, swallowed. She'd say I was being a fool. And that she didn't marry a coward. Did she? Caleb thought about the man he'd been. The soldier, the lawman, the husband and father who'd believed in justice, in honor, in fighting for what was right. Somewhere along the way he'd lost that man, buried him under grief and guilt and years of solitude. But maybe he wasn't gone. Maybe he'd just been waiting. No, Caleb said quietly. She didn't. Maggie's hand was still in his. Warm, steady, anchoring him to something he'd forgotten he needed. Then stop acting like one. The words should have stung. Instead, they felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. You don't pull punches, do you? Life's too short for punches that don't land. She smiled slightly. Besides, you need someone to tell you the truth. Lord knows you won't tell it to yourself. And you think you're that someone? I think I could be. She paused. If you let me. The firelight flickered between them. Sam slept on, oblivious to the moment passing over his head. Caleb should have pulled away, should have retreated behind his walls where it was safe, where nothing could hurt him anymore. Instead, he tightened his grip on her hand. Maybe I will. They sat in silence after that, watching the fire burn down. The cave protected them from the worst of the cold, but night was coming, and with it deeper dangers. We should move soon, Caleb said finally. The hunting cabin's still 2 miles out. We can make it before full dark if we leave now. What about Victor's men? My false trail led them north. They won't realize their mistake for hours. By then, we'll be long gone. Maggie nodded, then gently shook Sam awake. The boy stirred, groggily confused by his surroundings. Where are we? Still in the mountains, Maggie said. But we're moving soon. Can you walk? I think so. Sam rubbed his eyes. I had a dream about Papa. He was smiling at me, said everything was going to be okay. Maggie's face tightened, but her voice stayed steady. Then we'd better make sure he's right. They left the cave as the sun dropped toward the horizon. Caleb led them along a ridge trail, staying low, using every fold of terrain for cover. Sam walked between them, his small hand clutching Caleb's coat. The hunting cabin appeared just as the last light faded, a low structure built into the mountainside, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Caleb pushed open the door, checking for signs of recent use. Empty. Cold. But dry and defensible. We'll stay here tonight, he said. Build a fire once it's full dark. The smoke won't show. And tomorrow, we figure out how to get you to Silverton. The federal marshals should be arriving by now, with Brennan's testimony and whatever evidence they already have. Brennan might be dead. Maggie's voice was flat. We don't know what happened after we left. No, we don't. Caleb met her eyes. But we have to believe. We have to keep fighting. Even without the documents, Victor's scheme is too big to hide completely. The railroad connections, the land fraud, there'll be other evidence, other witnesses. And if there isn't, then we find another way. Sam had been listening silently. Now he spoke up. Grandma, what about the copy? Maggie went still. What copy? The copy you made. Of all the papers. You said you always make copies in case something happens to the originals. Sam frowned. You put them in the special place, remember, at Holloway Ranch? The air in the cabin changed. Maggie's eyes widened. The safe, she breathed. In William's study, behind the painting. You have copies? Caleb asked. Complete copies. Of everything. Her voice gained strength. I made them months ago before we left for Silverton. It was just a precaution. I never thought, can you get to them? If I can reach Holloway Ranch, yes. But Victor controls the ranch now. His men will be everywhere. Not everywhere. Caleb's mind was racing. He's been out here hunting you. His men are scattered across the territory searching. The ranch itself might be less guarded than usual. It's still too risky. More risky than staying here waiting for him to find us. Caleb stepped closer. Maggie, this is it. This is the chance. You get those documents, you give them to the marshals, and Victor goes down. Forever. And if I fail, you won't. How can you be sure? Because I'll be with you. The words hung between them. Maggie stared at him, something shifting in her expression. You'd come with me into Victor's territory. I'd follow you into hell if that's what it took. Why? The question deserved an honest answer. Caleb took a breath, reaching for words he'd never expected to say again. Because you woke something up in me. Something I thought was dead. He reached out, touched her face. Because when I look at you, I don't see a woman who needs saving. I see someone worth fighting beside. Maggie's eyes shimmered. Caleb. And because Sam needs you. He needs you alive and free, and able to give him the future he deserves. Caleb's voice roughened. I failed my own daughter. I won't fail him. A tear slid down Maggie's cheek. She didn't brush it away. You're asking me to trust you with everything. I'm asking you to let me help, same as you let me help that first night in the cabin. He managed a small smile. I'm just a man, Maggie, doing what's right. She laughed softly, a broken, beautiful sound. You keep saying that, like it's simple. It is simple. Doesn't mean it's easy. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Then she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was brief, barely more than a breath, but it shattered something in Caleb. Rebuilt something else in its place. That's a promise, she whispered against his mouth. Come back to me, Caleb Thornton. Both of us. Sam's voice broke the moment. Does this mean you're going to be my grandpa? Maggie pulled back, her cheeks flushing. Sam? What Mama used to say, that's what happens when grown-ups kiss. The boy looked between them with innocent curiosity. Is it true? Caleb found himself laughing, actually laughing for the first time in years. It's complicated, Sam. That's what grown-ups always say when they don't want to answer. Smart kid. Grandma says I'm too smart for my own good. Your grandma's usually right. They ate a cold meal from Caleb's packed jerky and hardtack and the last of the dried apples. Not much, but enough to quiet their stomachs. Sam fell asleep almost immediately, curled up on a pile of old blankets, exhausted beyond his years. Maggie sat beside Caleb near the cold fireplace, their shoulders touching. I've been thinking, she said quietly. Dangerous habit. About what happens after. If we win. If Victor goes to prison and I get Holloway Ranch back. She paused. It's a lot of land. More than one person can manage. More than one person should. You've managed it fine for years. I've survived it for years. There's a difference. She turned to look at him. I'm tired, Caleb. Tired of being alone. Tired of fighting every battle by myself. You've got Sam. Sam's a child. He needs to be protected, not burdened with adult problems. Her voice dropped. I need a partner. Someone I can trust. Someone who will stand beside me when things get hard. Caleb knew where this was heading. Could feel it pulling at him like gravity. Maggie, I'm a broken man. I've got nothing to offer except bad memories and calluses. You've got more than that. You've got courage, integrity, a heart that's bigger than you want to admit. She took his hand. And you're good with Sam. He responds to you in ways I haven't seen since his father died. That doesn't mean... What does it mean then? What do you want, Caleb? When all this is over, when the dust settles, what do you want your life to look like? No one had asked him that in 4 years. He'd stopped asking himself, stopped imagining any future at all. But now, sitting in this cold cabin with a sleeping boy and a woman who'd somehow broken through every wall he'd built, now he could see it. A different life. A better life. I want to wake up next to someone who matters, he said slowly. I want to work land that means something. I want to watch a boy grow into a man and know I had a part in it. Is that all? I want to stop running from my ghosts. I want to honor Sarah's memory by living, not just existing. He looked at Maggie and let her see everything. The fear, the hope, the desperate longing he'd kept buried for so long. I want to try again, even if it terrifies me. It terrifies me too. Her voice was barely a whisper. But I think that's how you know it matters. Yeah. He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. I think you're right. They sat together as darkness deepened outside. The mountains were silent. The pursuit temporarily lost. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, new challenges, new fights. But tonight, for the first time in 4 years, Caleb Thornton wasn't alone. And that made all the difference. Morning came too fast. Caleb woke to the sound of voices distant but unmistakable. Men calling to each other, coordinating a search. He was on his feet, instantly, rifle in hand. Maggie was already awake, her face pale but determined. They found us. Not yet, but they're close. Caleb moved to the cabin's single window, peering through a crack in the shutter. I count 5, maybe 6, coming up from the south. That's the direction we came from. They must have doubled back, picked up our real trail. He cursed under his breath. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they reach us. Can we run? Not with Sam, not through this terrain. Caleb's mind raced through options. We make a stand. Use the cabin's defenses. Against 6 men. You have a better idea. Before she could answer, Sam appeared at her elbow. The boy's face was calm, too calm for his age. I can help, he said. Sam, no. I know how to shoot. Papa taught me. Before. Sam's jaw set in that stubborn way that reminded Caleb painfully of himself. I'm not hiding again, not while you fight for me. Maggie looked at Caleb, anguish in her eyes. He understood her conflict, the desperate need to protect her grandson warring with the reality of their situation. "He stays inside," Caleb said, "away from windows. But if they breach the door—" He pulled his pistol, handed it to Sam. "Only if they breach the door. Understand?" Sam took the weapon with solemn reverence. "Understand. And if we tell you to run, you run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Don't try to be brave. You run until you can't run anymore. Then you find a place to hide, and you stay there until it's safe." "What about Grandma? What about you?" "We'll find you. I promise." The boy's eyes searched his face. "You keep saying that." "I keep meaning it." Outside, the voices were getting closer. Caleb could pick out individual words now, orders, questions, responses. "They're spreading out," he murmured to Maggie, circling the cabin. "Then we're surrounded." "Looks that way." "So what do we do?" Caleb checked his rifle, counted his ammunition, calculated odds that weren't in their favor. "We fight," he said, "and we pray." The first shot came 10 minutes later. It punched through the cabin's wall, missing Maggie by inches. She dropped to the floor, pulling Sam down with her. "Stay down!" Caleb shouted, returning fire through the window. A cry of pain from outside. He'd hit one, but there were still more, and they were spreading out, seeking angles. "Thornton." Victor's voice rang across the clearing. "This doesn't have to end badly. Give me the woman and the boy, and you walk away. Go to hell. I'm trying to be reasonable here. You've got nothing to gain from this fight." Caleb fired again, deliberately high. Warning shot. "I said go to hell." A barrage of gunfire answered him. Wood splintered around the windows. Maggie crawled to the far wall, shielding Sam with her body. "We can't hold them off forever," she gasped. "Don't need forever. Just need long enough." "Long enough for what?" Before he could answer, a new sound cut through the chaos, the thunder of approaching horses. Lots of them. Coming fast. Victor's men heard it too. The gunfire faltered. Stopped. "What the—" someone shouted outside. Caleb risked a look through the window. What he saw made his heart stop. A dozen riders cresting the ridge. At their head, a man in a long coat with a silver star gleaming on his chest. Not Brennan. Someone else. Someone official. "Federal Marshals." The lead rider's voice boomed across the clearing. "Everyone stand down. This is a federal operation." Victor's men scattered like roaches in lamplight. Some ran for horses. Others threw down their weapons, hands raised in surrender. Victor himself stood frozen in the middle of the chaos, his face a mask of disbelief. "No," he said. "No, this isn't possible." The lead marshal rode forward, flanked by armed men. "Victor Holloway, you're under arrest for land fraud conspiracy to commit murder, and a list of other charges long enough to paper a barn." "You can't prove anything." "Actually, we can." The marshal reached into his saddlebag, produced a familiar leather folder. "Sheriff Brennan made it to town before he died. Handed these to my deputy with his last breath. Said to tell Mrs. Holloway he kept his promise." Brennan. Dead. But he'd saved them. Even at the end, he'd saved them. Caleb lowered his rifle, suddenly exhausted. It was over. After everything, the running, the fighting, the fear, it was finally over. He turned to tell Maggie. She was already moving toward the door, Sam's hand clutched in hers. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "We did it," she whispered. "Caleb, we did it." "No." He caught her in his arms, held her tight. "You did it. You and Sam and Brennan. I just helped." "You did more than help." She pulled back, looked into his eyes. "You gave us hope. When everything seemed lost, you gave us a reason to keep fighting." Outside, the marshals were securing Victor. The man who'd murdered her son, terrorized her family, burned down Caleb's home. He was finally facing justice. But Caleb barely noticed. All he could see was Maggie's face. All he could feel was her hand in his. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now." She smiled through her tears. "Now we go home." The ride to Holloway Ranch took 2 days. Marshal Crawford, the man who'd led the rescue, insisted on a full escort. 6 armed deputies surrounded their small party eyes, constantly scanning the horizon. Victor might be in custody, but his associates were still out there. Men who'd profited from the land fraud scheme. Men who had everything to lose. Sam rode with Caleb, the boy's small body pressed against his back. Maggie rode alongside them, her wounded arm still bound but healing. None of them spoke much. Words seemed inadequate after everything they'd survived. On the second night, they made camp in a sheltered valley. Sam fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the journey. Maggie sat beside the fire, staring into the flames. Caleb settled next to her. "You're quiet." "Just thinking." About what comes next." She looked at him, and he saw fear beneath the exhaustion. Victor's arrested, but his trial could take months, years even. And the people he worked with, the railroad officials, the politicians, they won't just disappear. Crawford said the federal government is committed to prosecution. Crawford is one man, and he doesn't control what happens in territorial courts. Maggie's voice hardened. "I've been fighting this battle for 3 years, Caleb. Every time I thought I'd won something knocked me back down. This time is different." "Is it?" "You've got federal marshals involved, evidence that can't be ignored, witnesses willing to talk." He took her hand. "And you've got me." She smiled slightly. "Do I?" "For as long as you want me." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Maggie turned her hand in his, intertwining their fingers. "I don't know what I want anymore," she admitted. "I spent so long just trying to survive, trying to keep Sam safe. I forgot how to think about anything else." Maybe that's okay. Maybe surviving was enough. But it shouldn't have to be. There should be more. A life, not just an existence. Sounds like something I used to tell myself. And what changed? Caleb looked at her. Really looked. At the silver in her hair, the lines around her eyes, the strength that radiated from every inch of her being. "You did. You and Sam." Maggie's breath caught. "Caleb, I'm not asking for anything, not expecting anything. I just wanted you to know." He squeezed her hand. "Whatever happens when we reach Holloway Ranch, whatever decisions you need to make, I'll support them. Even if that means walking away. And if I don't want you to walk away, then I won't." She leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. They sat like that until the fire burned low, 2 people who'd found each other in the midst of chaos, not sure what came next, but no longer facing it alone. Holloway Ranch appeared on the horizon the next afternoon. Even from a distance, Caleb could see it was impressive. A sprawling main house, multiple outbuildings, fenced corrals stretching toward the mountains. This was wealth, real wealth built over decades of hard work, and it all belonged to Maggie. "Home." Sam breathed, straightening in the saddle. "We're really home." "We're home, sweetheart," Maggie said, but her voice was tight. Caleb understood why. Coming back meant facing everything she'd lost. The memories of William, of Thomas and Catherine, of the life that had been shattered by Victor's greed. As they approached the main gate, a figure emerged from the house. A young man, maybe 23 or 24, with dark hair and worried eyes. He ran toward them, stopping short when he saw the marshal's escort, Mrs. Holloway. The relief in his voice was palpable. "Thank God. We heard there were rumors. We thought you might be—" "I'm fine, Ezra." Maggie dismounted, accepting the young man's steadying hand. "We all are." Ezra's eyes moved to Caleb, then to Sam, then back to Maggie. "Who's this?" "Caleb Thornton. He saved our lives." Maggie's voice carried weight, a clear message. "He's a friend." Friend. The word felt both accurate and inadequate. "Ma'am." Ezra tipped his hat to Caleb, then turned back to Maggie. "There's a lot you need to know. After Mr. Victor left with his men, things got complicated. Complicated how? Some of the hands quit, said they didn't want to be around when the law came calling. Others stayed, but there's been talk. Ezra lowered his voice. Burke Victor's foreman, he's still here, refusing to leave. Says he's got rights. Maggie's expression hardened. Burke has no rights, not on my land. Yes, ma'am, but he's got 3 men with him. They've been holed up in the bunkhouse since yesterday, armed. Marshal Crawford stepped forward. Sounds like we've got work to do. The confrontation happened within the hour. Burke was a hard-faced man with a scar across his cheek. Caleb recognized him from Victor's search party. He stood on the bunkhouse porch with 3 equally rough-looking men, all armed, all defiant. Margaret Holloway. Burke's voice dripped contempt. Finally crawled back, did you? This is my property, Burke. You're trespassing. Am I? Way I heard it, Mr. Victor's the rightful owner. Something about you being too addled to manage things proper. Victor is in federal custody. His claims have been exposed as fraud. Says who? Some government men from back east. Burke spat in the dirt. This is Colorado territory. We handle our own business out here. Crawford stepped forward, hand on his pistol. I'm a federal marshal. These men are deputies. You want to test how we handle business. Burke's eyes flickered calculation, not fear. You're outnumbered. By 3 men in a wooden building against 12 armed lawmen. Crawford almost smiled. Try again. Maybe we don't care about dying. Maybe we've got nothing left to lose. Then you're fools. Maggie's voice cut through the tension. Victor promised you something, didn't he, Moneyland? Whatever it was, it's gone now. He can't protect you. He can't pay you. All you've got is a choice: walk away or face federal charges. Federal charges? Burke laughed bitterly. For what? Doing my job. For accessory to murder. For land fraud. For conspiracy. Maggie stepped closer, and Caleb marveled at her courage. This woman had been shot, hunted, nearly killed, and here she was facing down armed men without flinching. I know you were there, Burke, 3 years ago, when they stopped that stagecoach, when they murdered my son. Burke's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Victor kept records, detailed records, names, dates, payments. She was bluffing. Caleb knew the documents hadn't been that specific, but Burke didn't know that. Your name is in those records, multiple times. She's lying, one of Burke's men shouted, but there was fear in his voice now. Am I? Want to find out? Because Marshal Crawford here would love nothing more than to add you to his list of arrests. Maggie's voice dropped cold as mountain ice. Or you can ride out, right now. Take whatever Victor promised you and disappear. I don't care where you go. I just want you gone. The moment stretched. Burke's hand hovered near his gun. Caleb's fingers tightened on his rifle. Then Burke laughed, a hollow, defeated sound. Damn, woman. Always were too smart for your own good. He turned to his men. Get your things. We're leaving. Burke, one of them started. I said we're leaving. Burke's voice cracked like a whip. Unless you want to hang for Victor Holloway's mistakes. 20 minutes later, they were gone, riding west toward nothing and no one. Caleb watched them go, tension slowly draining from his shoulders. That was a hell of a bluff, he said to Maggie. Who said I was bluffing? She smiled slightly. I may have exaggerated the details, but the core truth stands. Victor kept records. He was too arrogant not to. And if Burke had called your bluff, then things would have gotten interesting. You're a dangerous woman, Margaret Holloway. I prefer resourceful. But her smile widened, and for a moment she looked almost young again. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Maggie threw herself into restoring order to Holloway Ranch with the same fierce determination she'd shown throughout their ordeal. She rehired loyal hands, reviewed accounts, met with lawyers about Victor's assets and the legal tangle he'd left behind. Caleb found himself pulled into the work almost without meaning to. He helped mend fences, move cattle, repair winter damage. Physical labor, honest and exhausting, the kind that left no room for dark thoughts. Sam stuck close to both of them, following Caleb around during the day, curling up with Maggie at night. The boy was slowly coming back to life, laughing more, asking questions, showing flashes of the child he'd been before tragedy stole his innocence. "He's different with you," Maggie said one evening, watching Sam practice roping a fence post under Caleb's guidance. "Different how? More relaxed, more himself." She paused. "Thomas was like that with him. Patient, present. I'm not trying to replace his father. I know, but he needs someone, Caleb, a man to look up to, someone who shows him what strength looks like. And you think that's me? I think you're the closest thing he's had since Thomas died." The words settled into Caleb's chest, heavy with responsibility. He watched Sam throw the rope, miss badly, laugh at himself, and try again. "I don't know how to be a father," he said quietly. "I barely had time to learn before Lily died." Maggie finished for him, her voice gentle. 3 days, that's all I got with her. 3 days of holding her, feeding her, watching her sleep." His voice roughened. "Not enough time to learn anything." "Maybe that's not true. Maybe those 3 days taught you everything that matters." She moved closer, her shoulder touching his. Love. Protection. The willingness to sacrifice anything for someone smaller than yourself. That's instinct, not skill. And you think parenting is a skill? Something you can learn from a book? Maggie shook her head. It's not. It's love and patience and showing up day after day, even when you're exhausted and confused and don't know what you're doing. You make it sound simple. It is simple, just not easy. Sam's rope finally caught the post. The boy let out a whoop of triumph, spinning to face them with a grin that lit up his whole face. "Did you see that? Did you see?" "I saw," Maggie called back. "Well done, sweetheart." Sam ran toward them, rope trailing behind him. He skidded to a stop in front of Caleb, still grinning. "Can we practice more tomorrow? You said you'd teach me to ride proper too, and Ezra said there's a new foal in the stable. Can I name it?" "Please." The barrage of questions made Caleb's head spin. But beneath the chaos, there was something warm, something that felt dangerously like family. "One thing at a time, Sam." "That means yes, right, Grandma? That means yes?" "I think it does," Maggie said, laughing. Sam threw his arms around Caleb's waist in a fierce hug, then darted away toward the stables, already shouting for Ezra. "That boy has more energy than a summer storm," Caleb said, watching him go. "He does, but he's been storing it up for 3 years. I think he's finally letting himself be a child again. Because he feels safe." "Yes." Maggie turned to face him. "Because of you. You give me too much credit. I give you exactly the credit you deserve." She reached up, touched his face. "You saved us, Caleb. Not just from Victor, from despair, from giving up. You never would have given up. Not you. I might have, if you hadn't been there, if I hadn't had someone to be strong for." Her eyes held his. "You gave me a reason to keep fighting. Don't underestimate what that's worth." He covered her hand with his own, pressing it against his cheek. "I'm not good with words, Maggie. Never have been. But what I feel for you, what I feel for Sam, it's more than I thought I'd ever feel again." "What do you feel?" "Hope, fear, something that might be love if I'm brave enough to call it that." He took a breath. "I know it's too soon. I know you've got enough to deal with without adding complicated emotions to the mix, but I wanted you to know, whatever happens, wherever this goes, you've changed me, both of you." Maggie's eyes glistened. "It's not too soon. And feelings aren't complicated. People make them complicated by running away from them. Are you saying I should stop running? I'm saying you already have." She smiled through her tears. "You stopped the moment you pulled us from that snow. He kissed her then. Not the brief brush of lips from the hunting cabin, but a real kiss, deep and thorough, and full of everything he couldn't put into words. She responded with equal intensity, her hands fisting in his coat, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Maggie laughed softly. Well, that was overdue. By about a week. Try 3 years. He raised an eyebrow. You've been waiting 3 years for me to kiss you. I've been waiting 3 years to feel something again. You just happened to be the one who woke me up. She rested her forehead against his. Stay, Caleb. Not just for Sam. For me. What about your reputation? A widow taking up with a drifter. You're not a drifter. You're a rancher, a lawman, a hero. And if anyone has something to say about my choices, they can say it to my face. Her voice hardened with familiar steel. I've spent my whole life caring what others think. I'm done. I want to be happy, and you make me happy. The rest is noise. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Caleb pulled her close, holding her against his chest. Behind them, the sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of fire. Ahead of them lay a future neither had expected, uncertain, challenging, full of hard work and harder choices. But they'd face it together, and that made all the difference. The peace lasted exactly 3 weeks. Caleb was helping Ezra repair the barn roof when a rider appeared on the horizon, pushing hard toward the ranch. He climbed down, meeting the messenger at the gate. Telegram for Mrs. Holloway. The rider was young, barely out of his teens, panting from exertion. Marked urgent. Caleb took the envelope, tipped the boy a coin, and headed for the main house. His stomach tightened with each step. Urgent telegrams rarely brought good news. Maggie was in William's old study sorting through decades of ranch records. She looked up when Caleb entered, her expression sharpening at the envelope in his hand. What is it? Telegram. From the territorial court. She took it, read it, and went pale. Victor escaped. The words hit Caleb like a physical blow. How? Doesn't say. Just that he overpowered a guard during transport and fled. Her hands were shaking. They think he's heading west. Toward us. How long ago? 3 days. She looked up, fear stark in her eyes. Caleb, he's had 3 days to plan. To gather men. To stop. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to focus. We knew this was possible. We prepared for it. Did we? I'm not sure you can prepare for Victor. He's different now. Desperate. When I saw him in that clearing, the look in his eyes, she shuddered. He's not going to stop. Not until one of us is dead. Then we make sure it's him. How? We don't know where he is, how many men he has, what he's planning. We don't need to know. Caleb's voice was steady, his lawman's instincts clicking into place. He's coming here, to finish what he started. That gives us the advantage. How is that an advantage? Because we get to choose the ground, set the defenses, be ready for him. He released her shoulders, moved to the window. How many hands do you trust completely? Ezra, 4 or 5 others. That's not enough. We need more. Where are we going to find more men on short notice? Marshal Crawford. He left deputies in Silverton. If Victor's escaped, they'll be mobilizing anyway. Caleb turned back to her. I'll ride out, bring them back. Meanwhile, you fortify the house. Lock down anything valuable. Keep Sam inside at all times. You're leaving? For a few hours. I'll be back before dark. And if Victor comes while you're gone? He won't. He's smart enough to wait, scout the situation, make a plan. That's what I'd do in his position. Maggie shook her head. You're not like him. No, but I understand him. That's what makes me dangerous. He kissed her quickly, no time for more, and headed for the door. Caleb. Her voice stopped him. Come back to me. I always do. The ride to Silverton took 4 hours. Caleb pushed his horse hard, driven by a sense of urgency he couldn't quite explain. Something was wrong. something beyond Victor's escape. He found his answer when he reached the marshal's office. It was empty. Abandoned. A hastily scrawled note on the door read, "Deputies called to Denver. Emergency session." No help there. Caleb stood in the empty street thinking fast. Who else could he turn to? The local sheriff was a political appointee, useless at best, possibly, in Victor's pocket at worst. The townspeople were civilians, not fighters. Then he remembered something. A name Brennan had mentioned before the fire. Tucker. Jake Tucker. The ranch hand who'd been tracking them on Victor's orders. The one who'd let them go. Caleb found him at the saloon nursing a whiskey at the bar. Tucker. The young man looked up, his face flickering through surprise, guilt, and something like hope. "Mr. Thornton, didn't expect to see you again." "Didn't expect to need you again?" Caleb sat beside him. "Victor escaped custody." Tucker's face went ashen. "When?" 3 days ago. Heading this way, most likely." "Jesus." Tucker drained his whiskey in one gulp. "What are you going to do?" "Fight him. But I need men. Good men who know what they're doing. And you came to me. You let us go when you didn't have to. That took courage. That took cowardice. I was scared of what Victor would do if he found out I'd helped you. But you helped us anyway. That's what matters." Caleb leaned closer. "I'm not asking you to face Victor alone. I'm asking you to stand with us. With Mrs. Holloway, who treated you fair for 5 years. With her grandson, who never did anything to deserve what's happening to him." Tucker was quiet for a long moment. Then he signaled the bartender. 2 whiskeys. They drank in silence. "I know some men," Tucker said finally. "Former ranch hands. Good with guns, better with horses. They left Holloway after Victor started making trouble. They've been waiting for a chance to set things right." "How many bit?" 8, maybe 10. "Can you get them?" "I can try." Tucker met Caleb's eyes. "But if we're doing this, we're doing it proper. No half measures. No mercy. Victor's not going to show us mercy. I don't see why we should return the favor." Tucker nodded slowly. Then he stood dropping coins on the bar. "Give me 2 hours. Meet me at the old Brennan homestead. The sheriff had a place about 3 miles east of town. We'll gather there." "Tucker." Caleb caught his arm. "Why are you doing this? Really?" The young man's face hardened. "Because my mother worked for Mrs. Holloway before I was born. She was kind to us, gave my mother medicine when she was sick, paid for my schooling when we couldn't afford it." He pulled free of Caleb's grip. "Victor wanted to destroy that. Everything good about Holloway Ranch. I couldn't let him then. I can damn sure stop him now." He walked out without looking back. Caleb returned to Holloway Ranch with 12 armed men at his back. They arrived just as the sun was setting, spreading out to cover the approaches, taking positions in outbuildings and on rooftops. Maggie met them at the door. Sam pressed close to her side. "You found help." "Tucker found help. I just pointed them in the right direction." "Tucker." She looked past him to where the young man was directing others. "I thought he was one of Victor's." "He was. Now he's one of ours." Caleb ushered her inside. "How are things here?" "Quiet. Too quiet." Maggie's jaw was tight. "Every hand is armed and watching. Sam hasn't left my sight." "Good. Keep it that way." Sam tugged at Caleb's coat. "Is Uncle Victor really coming?" Caleb knelt to meet the boy's eyes. "Probably. But we're ready for him." "Are you going to kill him?" The question was stark, delivered with a child's directness. Caleb considered lying, softening the truth. But Sam had earned better than that. "If I have to protect you and your grandmother." "Good." Sam's voice was hard. "He killed Mama and Papa. He deserves to die." "Sam." Maggie's voice was sharp. "We've talked about this. You said justice would come. Well, this is justice, isn't it?" The boy looked between them. Confusion and anger warring on his young face. Isn't killing bad people justice? Caleb placed his hands on Sam's shoulders. Sometimes. But it's not something to celebrate. Taking a life, even a bad life, it changes you, leaves marks that don't heal. But you've done it before, in the war, as a marshal. Yes, and I carry those marks. Every single one. Caleb's voice gentled. I don't want that for you, Sam. I want you to grow up believing in law and courts and proper justice. What's happening now, it's necessary. But it's not right. Sam was quiet for a moment. Then, Papa said the same thing once, about the difference between necessary and right. Your Papa was a wise man. I miss him. I know. Caleb pulled him into a brief hug. But he's still with you. Remember? Sam nodded against his chest. In my hands, in my habits, in the way I stand when I'm scared. That's right. The boy pulled back, squaring his shoulders. I'm scared now, but I'm not going to hide. Nobody's asking you to hide, just to stay safe. Caleb stood. Can you do that for me, for your grandmother? Yes, sir. Good man. The wait began. Hours passed. Night deepened. Caleb stationed himself on the main house's upper floor, watching through a window that gave him clear sightlines to the north and east. Maggie sat with Sam downstairs, both of them quiet, both of them listening. Around midnight, Tucker appeared beside him. Movement on the North Ridge. 3 riders, maybe 4. That's not Victor's style. He'd come with more. Scouts, probably. Testing our defenses. Caleb nodded. Let them look. They'll report back that we're fortified. Victor will have to adjust his plans. And if he doesn't care, if he just charges in with everything he's got, then we kill as many as we can and pray it's enough. Tucker was quiet for a moment. Then, you really love her, don't you, Mrs. Holloway? The question caught Caleb off guard. Why do you ask? The way you look at her. The way you talk about protecting her. Tucker shrugged. I've seen men fight for money, for land, for pride. But the way you're fighting, that's something different. Caleb didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low. I lost my wife. My daughter. Spent 4 years thinking I'd never feel anything again. Then Maggie and Sam came along and... He stopped, shook his head. I can't lose them, Tucker. I won't. Then we make sure you don't. The young man moved away, disappearing into the darkness to check other positions. Caleb stayed at the window, watching, waiting, hoping Victor would come soon. The not knowing was worse than any fight. Dawn broke gray and cold. No attack had come. The scouts had retreated, melting back into the wilderness. But the tension remained thick as fog. Caleb found Maggie in the kitchen, making coffee with hands that trembled slightly. You should sleep, he said. Can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see him. Victor, standing over Thomas's body, smiling. She poured coffee, spilling a little. I keep thinking, what if we can't stop him? What if he wins? He won't win. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll die trying to stop him. He took the coffee pot from her hands, set it down, pulled her close. Whatever happens, Maggie, whatever comes, you gave me something I thought was gone forever. Hope. A reason to keep fighting. That's not exactly comforting. It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to be true. She laughed, despite herself, a broken sound. You're a terrible liar, Caleb Thornton. Sarah used to say the same thing. Smart woman. The smartest. He kissed her forehead. Get some rest. I'll keep watch. She started to argue, then stopped. Exhaustion was winning. 1 hour. Then I'm taking over. 2 hours, and you let Sam sleep. Bossy. Learned from the best. She smiled real this time and headed for the stairs. Caleb watched her go, memorizing the way she moved the set of her shoulders, the gray in her hair. If Victor took her from him, He would burn the world down in response. He just had to make sure it didn't come to that. Victor came at dawn. Not with the army Caleb had expected, but with something worse: desperation. 7 men on horseback riding hard toward the ranch, guns blazing before they even reached the gate. "They're here!" Tucker's shout echoed across the compound. Caleb was already moving, rifle in hand, taking position at the upper window. "Hold fire until they're in range." The riders split into 2 groups, circling the main house like wolves around prey. Gunfire crackled through the cold morning air. One of Tucker's men went down, clutching his shoulder. "Return fire." Caleb squeezed the trigger, saw a rider tumble from his horse. "Don't let them reach the house." Below, he heard Maggie shouting orders, directing the defense with the same steel she'd shown throughout their ordeal. Sam was somewhere in the cellar, safe, Caleb hoped, though nothing felt safe anymore. A window shattered downstairs. Someone screamed. Caleb ran for the stairs, heart pounding. The main room was chaos: broken glass, overturned furniture, one of Tucker's men bleeding on the floor while Ezra dragged him toward cover. "Where's Maggie?" Caleb demanded. "Kitchen. She went to check the back entrance." Caleb sprinted through the house, dodging fallen debris. The kitchen door hung open, cold wind rushing through. And there in the doorway stood Victor Holloway. He had Maggie by the throat. "Stop right there, Thornton." Victor's voice was eerily calm, his pistol pressed against Maggie's temple. "Drop the rifle or I paint this wall with her brains." Caleb froze. His rifle was useless. Any shot risked hitting Maggie, and Victor's finger was already on the trigger. "Let her go." "I don't think so. She's the only reason I'm still breathing." Victor smiled, that cold, dead smile Caleb had seen in the clearing. "You've cost me everything. My ranch, my reputation, my freedom. But I'm going to take something from you first." "Victor." Maggie's voice was strained but steady. "This won't change anything. The marshals have the evidence. You're finished." "Maybe, but at least I'll have the satisfaction of watching you die." His grip tightened. "You should have just signed the papers, Margaret. Should have walked away when I gave you the chance." "Walk away from my son's memory, from my grandson's inheritance." She tried to laugh, but it came out as a gasp. "I'd rather die." "That can be arranged." "No." The word came from behind Victor, small, fierce, impossible. Sam stood in the kitchen doorway, Caleb's pistol clutched in both hands. The boy was shaking, tears streaming down his face, but his aim was steady. "Sam, get back!" Maggie cried. "Let her go, Uncle Victor." Sam's voice cracked, but didn't waver. "Let her go, or I'll shoot." Victor's expression flickered surprise, then something darker. You wouldn't. You're just a child." "I was 5 when you killed my parents. I watched them die." The pistol didn't move. "I'm not a child anymore." "Sam," Caleb started. "No. This is my family, my fight." The boy took a step forward. "You took everything from me, Uncle Victor. My mama, my papa, my home. I won't let you take Grandma too." Victor's composure cracked. For the first time, fear showed in his eyes, not of the gun, but of what he saw in his nephew's face. The same determination, the same steel, the same willingness to do whatever was necessary. "You won't pull that trigger. You don't have it in you. Try me." The moment stretched. Caleb saw his opening. Victor's attention split between Sam and Maggie, and he moved. His shoulder slammed into Victor's side, breaking his grip on Maggie. The pistol discharged, deafening in the enclosed space, but the shot went wide. Maggie stumbled free, coughing, clutching her throat. Victor and Caleb crashed to the floor together. They fought like animals, no skill, no strategy, just raw, desperate violence. Victor was younger, but Caleb was fueled by something stronger than youth. Every punch he threw carried 4 years of grief. Every blow landed with the weight of everyone Victor had taken from them. "You killed my son," punch. "You murdered innocent people," punch. "You tried to destroy everything good in this world," punch. Victor's face was a bloody mess, but he was still fighting. His hand found a kitchen knife slashed upward. Caleb twisted away, felt the blade slice his forearm, ignored the pain. "You're going to die, Thornton." Victor's voice was thick with blood. "Here, today. And then I'm going to finish what I started." "No." Caleb caught his wrist twisted. The knife clattered away. "You're done, Victor. It's over." "It's never over. Not while I'm alive." "Then maybe you shouldn't be alive." Caleb's hands closed around Victor's throat. The man thrashed, clawed at his arms, his eyes bulging with terror. All Caleb had to do was squeeze. 10 seconds. Maybe less. And the monster who'd destroyed Maggie's family would be gone forever. "Caleb." Maggie's voice soft but urgent. "Don't. He deserves it." "Yes, he does. But you don't deserve what it would do to you." She knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "Let him face justice. Real justice. The kind that lasts." "What if he escapes again? Then we'll catch him again, and again, as many times as it takes." Her fingers curled into his coat. "But not like this. Please. Not with Sam watching." The words cut through Caleb's rage. He looked up, saw Sam standing frozen in the doorway, still holding the pistol, his young face pale with horror. What was he teaching this boy? That justice meant killing. That rage solved problems. That becoming a monster was acceptable, if your enemy was worse. Caleb released Victor's throat. The man gasped, coughing, rolling onto his side. Caleb stood stepping back, his whole body shaking with the effort of control. "Tucker." His voice was hoarse. "Get in here." The young man appeared within seconds, taking in the scene with wide eyes. "Jesus." "Tie him up. Make sure he can't move." "And then we wait for the marshals." Caleb looked down at Victor, who was still gasping on the floor. "He's going to stand trial. He's going to face every person he's hurt. And then he's going to hang." Victor laughed a wet, desperate sound. "You think that's justice? Giving me over to courts that I helped corrupt? I'll be free within a year." "Maybe." Caleb crouched, meeting Victor's eyes. "But I doubt it. Because everyone knows now. The marshals, the newspapers, the territorial governor. You're famous, Victor, the kind of famous that doesn't go away. I have friends. You had friends. Past tense. Friends disappear when the money runs out, when the power's gone." Caleb stood. "You're alone now, just like you left Maggie, just like you left Sam, and you're going to stay alone until the day you die." He turned away, dismissing Victor from his attention. Maggie was already moving toward Sam, wrapping her arms around the trembling boy. "You were so brave," she whispered. "So brave." "I almost shot him." Sam's voice was tiny. "I wanted to." "But you didn't. You controlled it. That's what matters." "Mr. Thornton controlled it too." The boy looked at Caleb over his grandmother's shoulder. "He wanted to kill Uncle Victor. I could see it. But he stopped." "Yes, he did." Sam broke free of Maggie's embrace, crossed to Caleb. For a moment he just stood there looking up with those two old eyes. Then he wrapped his arms around Caleb's waist and held on like his life depended on it. "Thank you," the boy whispered, "for not becoming like him." Caleb's eyes stung. He held the boy close, feeling something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen for 4 years, finally thawing. "Thank you for reminding me who I want to be." The marshals arrived 3 days later. A full contingent this time, 8 men led by a grim-faced official named Deputy Marshal Harrison, who'd been tracking Victor since his escape. They took custody of the prisoner with professional efficiency, ignoring Victor's threats and promises with equal disinterest. "He'll be tried in Denver," Harrison told Maggie. "Federal court. No territorial interference. I can promise you that much." And the others, his associates. "Being rounded up as we speak. The railroad executives, the politicians, they're all scrambling to cut deals. Turns out nobody wants to hang for Victor Holloway's schemes. What about testimony I can provide? Mrs. Holloway. Harrison's voice softened. You've done enough. More than enough. Let us handle the rest. Maggie nodded slowly. 3 years of fighting, of gathering evidence, of watching her back, and now it was someone else's burden. The relief in her face was mixed with something else. Uncertainty, maybe. Loss of purpose. Caleb understood. He'd felt the same way after the war, after leaving the marshal's badge behind. When you'd built your life around one battle, the silence after victory could be deafening. He found her that evening on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains she'd called home for 3 decades. How are you feeling? Empty. She smiled slightly. Isn't that strange? I should be celebrating? Victor's gone. The ranch is safe. Sam is safe. Everything I've fought for, I won. But I don't know what to do now. For so long, survival was enough. Protecting what's mine. Fighting the next battle. She turned to look at him. What do you do when there's no battle left? You find something else worth fighting for. Like what? Caleb moved closer, taking her hand. Like building something. Not just defending what exists, but creating something new. A future. A future. She tested the word like it was foreign. I'm not sure I remember how to think about futures. Neither did I. Until a few weeks ago. What changed? You know what changed? Their eyes met. Maggie's breath caught. Caleb, I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I just want you to know you don't have to face the future alone. Whatever it holds, whatever comes, I'll be here. If you want me. If I want you. She laughed softly. You pulled me from a snowbank, stitched my wounds, protected my grandson, gave up everything you had to keep us safe. That's not an answer. Isn't it? She stepped closer, her free hand rising to cup his face. I'm 54 years old, Caleb. I've buried a husband, a son, a daughter-in-law. I've fought battles most people can't imagine. And through all of it, I told myself I didn't need anyone. That being alone was safer. And now I've met a man who makes me want to try again, to believe that love doesn't always end in loss. Her voice cracked slightly. Is that foolish? At my age, I don't think love has an age limit. What about second chances? Do they? I hope not, because I'm counting on one myself. Maggie smiled a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and softened every line on her face. Then maybe we can count on them together. He kissed her as the sun sank behind the mountains, painting the world in shades of gold and crimson. Not a desperate kiss like before. A promise. A beginning. When they finally broke apart, Sam was standing in the doorway watching them with a knowing expression far too old for his years. Does this mean you're staying? The boy asked Caleb. Would that be okay with you? Sam considered the question with appropriate gravity. Are you going to marry Grandma? Sam. Maggie's cheeks flushed. That's not we haven't. It's a fair question. Caleb knelt to meet the boy's eyes. What would you say if I did? I'd say it's about time. Sam's serious expression cracked into a grin. Grandma's been looking at you funny for weeks. I figured something was going on. Looking at me funny. You know, the way Mama used to look at Papa when she thought nobody was watching. The boy shrugged. I notice things. You certainly do. Caleb ruffled his hair. And to answer your question, yes, I'm staying. Whether your grandmother will have me as a husband is up to her. Sam turned to Maggie expectantly. Well, what? Are you going to marry him or not? Maggie looked between them. Her grandson bright-eyed and hopeful, and the man who'd stumbled into their lives during a blizzard and somehow become essential. I suppose someone needs to keep him out of trouble, she said finally. Sam whooped with delight, throwing his arms around both of them. Caleb found himself laughing, genuine and free, the sound strange after so many years of silence. I have conditions, Maggie added, her voice mock serious. Name them. First, you help me run this ranch. I'm not marrying a man who sits around while I do all the work. Fair enough. Second, you teach Sam everything you know. Riding, shooting, tracking, but also reading, writing, mathematics. He needs a proper education. Done. Third. She paused, her expression softening. Third, you let yourself be happy. No more hiding from life. No more punishing yourself for things that weren't your fault. Caleb's throat tightened. That might be the hardest one. I'll help you. We'll help each other. Is there a fourth? Yes. She cupped his face in both hands. Never leave. Whatever happens, whatever storms come, you stay. You fight beside me. You build this life with me. That's not a condition. That's a promise. Then make it. I promise, Maggie Holloway. On my life. On everything I have left to give. He covered her hands with his. I'll stay. I'll fight. I'll build. For you. For Sam. For whatever future we create together. Sam tugged at both their sleeves. Can we have cake to celebrate? The mundane request shattered the moment's intensity, making both adults laugh. I think we can manage cake, Maggie said. They went inside together, Sam chattering about wedding plans and new rooms, and whether Caleb would officially become his grandfather or just be called something else entirely. The boy's energy was infectious, filling the house with life it hadn't known in years. Caleb watched him, feeling something settle into place in his chest. Not the sharp pain of grief he'd carried for so long, but something softer, warmer, an acceptance that loss and love could coexist. That moving forward didn't mean forgetting. Sarah would have wanted this. He knew it with absolute certainty. She would have wanted him to find joy again, to help raise another child, to love another woman. She would have been happy. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. 6 months later. The wedding was small, just ranch hands, a few neighbors, and the traveling preacher who'd been passing through Silverton. Maggie wore her best Sunday dress, faded blue with white lace at the collar. Caleb wore a suit he'd borrowed from Ezra, too tight in the shoulders but presentable. Sam stood beside them, holding the rings with appropriate solemnity. Do you, Caleb Thornton, take this woman to be your wife? The preacher asked. I do. And do you, Margaret Holloway, take this man to be your husband? I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado, I pronounce you man and wife. The preacher smiled. You may kiss the bride. Caleb did thoroughly, while the ranch hands cheered, and Sam made exaggerated gagging noises that belied his grin. Well, Mrs. Thornton, Caleb said when they finally parted. What now? Now we live, Maggie replied. Actually live, not just survive. I think I remember how. Good, because I'm going to need help with spring calving fence repairs and keeping up with an 8-year-old who thinks he's already grown. I heard that, Sam called. You were meant to. They celebrated into the evening, eating and drinking and telling stories. Tucker made a toast that was surprisingly eloquent. Ezra played fiddle badly but enthusiastically. Sam fell asleep against Caleb's shoulder, exhausted from excitement, and Caleb carried him to bed without waking him. When he returned to Maggie, she was standing on the porch looking out at the land that was now theirs together. Happy? He asked, slipping his arms around her from behind. Terrified. That's not what I asked. I know. She leaned back against him. Yes, I'm happy. Happier than I've been in years, maybe ever. Then why terrified? Because happiness is fragile. It can be taken away so quickly. I've learned that the hard way. So have I. He rested his chin on her head. But maybe that's why it matters. Because it's fragile. Because it's rare. You're getting philosophical in your old age. Blame Sam. He asks too many questions. Maggie laughed softly. He does. He's going to be impossible once he figures out he can play us against each other. Already figured it out. He's just waiting for the right moment. Smart boy. Takes after his grandmother. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, lonely, haunting, but not threatening. Just part of the wilderness they'd chosen to call home. Caleb. Thank you. For what? For finding us in that snowstorm. For not giving up. For believing we were worth saving when I wasn't even sure myself. You were always worth saving, Maggie. You just needed someone to remind you. And were you worth saving? He thought about the question, really thought for the first time in years. The answer came easier than he expected. I don't know, but I'm grateful someone thought so. I thought so, I still do. Then that's enough. She turned in his arms facing him. No more ghosts. Always ghosts. Sarah, Lily, you're Thomas and Catherine. He touched her face. But they're part of us now. Part of what we're building. Not something to run from. When did you figure that out? Somewhere between pulling you from the snow and falling in love with you. He smiled. The exact moment's a bit fuzzy. Falling in love, huh? Was that not clear? I suppose it was. She kissed him softly. I love you too. Just so we're even. Good. I'd hate to be unbalanced. They went inside to the home they'd defended, to the family they'd built, to the future they'd fought for. Behind them, the past remained, never forgotten, never erased, but finally at peace. And in the morning, when Sam burst into their room demanding breakfast and attention and 1,000 other things only an 8-year-old could need, Caleb Thornton, lonely cowboy, grieving widower, reluctant hero, discovered something he'd thought lost forever. Joy. Not the fleeting kind. Not the kind that disappeared when times got hard. But the deep, quiet, unshakable kind that came from belonging somewhere. To someone. To a family that had chosen him as surely as he'd chosen them. He'd spent 4 years running from life, hiding from pain, building walls that kept out everything good and bad alike. Now watching Maggie laugh at something Sam said, feeling the warmth of a home that was finally his, Caleb understood what he'd been missing. Not happiness. Happiness was temporary, dependent on circumstance. What he'd found was something rarer, something stronger. Peace. The kind that came from knowing exactly where you belonged, from loving and being loved in return, from facing the worst life could throw at you, and coming out the other side bruised but not broken, scarred, but still standing. Sarah would have been proud. Lily would have loved her new brother. Caleb was certain of it. And somewhere, Thomas and Catherine Holloway were smiling, knowing their son was safe. Their mother was happy, their legacy was secure. The past was part of them. It always would be. But it no longer defined them, no longer limited them, no longer held them prisoner. They had broken free. And now, finally, wonderfully, impossibly, they were home.